Hello everyone, my name is Monica Rodriguez and I want to tell you a little about my fieldwork experience. So the teacher I decided to observe was Miss Robinson. She works for Terra Vista Elementary School in the Etiwanda School District. She has worked there for 30 years now and she's actually retiring this year. She teaches transitional kindergarten for the past 5 years, but before that she taught kindergarten. Her classroom was decorated with a lot of colors and pictures and activities that the children created themselves. One thing that I really liked was to help her take roll, she would set up a question every day. For example, this one says, "Do you like to clean?" And students would pick up their name tag and either put their name under yes or no. And that's how she took roll. If the name tags weren't up there, then the students weren't here. And her classroom had a nature theme. So on one wall, she had a huge tree, which she told me showed the students' growth throughout the year, because the tree grows and the students grow as well. And throughout the first half of the year, they completed a caterpillar activity to show the life cycle of a butterfly. So students created a caterpillar and then a cocoon and a butterfly, and those were posted on the tree to show the growth and the progression of the students and of the life cycle of the butterfly. So everything is kind of revolved around growing. So the multiple intelligences she used in her class were pretty much almost all of them. She had a lot of activities for kinesthetic learners where they got up and moved around a lot. Musical, and of course in a transitional kindergarten classroom, there's a lot of music going on to help students learn their ABCs, their numbers, days of the weeks, colors, all that good stuff. She also appealed to the visual learner. A lot of visuals showing students directions using visuals. So she definitely used that to show the students what to do and what the activities were going to be, which I believe really helped the English language learners in the classroom because they would see what they needed to do, not just hear and be able to understand it. Next one is naturalistic. She had a water table and a sand table where the students got to dig and find little fossils, I guess you could call it. Next was verbal. The people who are word smart, she would read a lot of stories to the students revolving around the content of the lesson of that day. Next was logical, so the students that were really good at math. She would set out these base 10 blocks where students would create patterns or help them add, so it wasn't just used for math. It was during their free time when they could just play with them if they wanted to. And the next was interpersonal, which occurred almost throughout the whole school day. Students were constantly in groups talking to their shoulder buddies or their partners. So instructional approaches, the first one is centers. She definitely focused on that. That's what the students were in throughout the whole day. She taught students in groups. So instead of teaching them, teaching the whole class content, she would break it up into centers. So there was about 5 or 6 kids per group, and they would switch, and they would eventually come to the teacher, a group, and she would teach only the group of 5 the lesson for the day and then switch. So she wasn't teaching the whole class at a time. She was teaching groups of 5 children each time. Next is direct instruction. Although she didn't have much direct instruction to the whole class, she had a lot of direct instruction to the small groups, which I believed helped the students out more because they had more attention for just 5 students per teacher. After that, they would just have their own activities, such as cutting and pasting or coloring in their different groups that weren't directly observed by the teacher. The students were very independent on that. Which goes on to the hands-on learning. The students were doing a lot of touching and feeling stuff, especially with the sand and water table. She would change it out, different objects, depending on the lesson. If they were learning about insects, she would put little fake plastic insects in those sand tables or water tables, and different activities each time. Next is content integration. She would combine different subjects into one activity. For example, during her life cycle of a butterfly, that mostly focuses on science, but she added a lot of art and math into that. When the kids created the caterpillar, they would number the body of the caterpillar from 1 to 10, so they were learning their numbers. And then when it came to creating the butterfly, they painted one side of the butterfly, folded it in half to show the symmetry, to show how what's on one side is exactly the same on the other side. And she did that with a lot of activities as well, constantly integrating different subjects with others. And the next is peer teaching. Students were very independent and they were willing to help out their peers. One example, one of the students was having a little trouble on their worksheet, and a little girl goes up to him, or the one that's sitting next to him, and she goes, "Okay, what letter did this picture begin with?" And it was a picture of a horse. So the kid goes, "Well, it's a horse." She's like, "Okay, and what sound does that make?" And he goes, and she's like, "Okay, good. And what letter makes that noise?" And he goes, "H." And she says, "Good. So circle the letter H." So she was basically teaching him how to do the activity and reminding him how to do it because the teacher already went over it. And it wasn't just this little girl who liked to help out her friends. It was basically every single student in the classroom that would help each other out and show them how to do things, which I thought was pretty amazing. And next I have my takeaways. So I found that group activity is very effective in classrooms, especially in this classroom. Students were very friendly with each other and willing to help each other out. And it was good for them to work in small groups instead of a big classroom because they had more focus and were able to concentrate on what they had to do instead of a whole classroom where some kids would be messing around with their shoelaces. When they had this, they had something to do at each group that they had to switch to. Next, every activity can be integrated with a multiple intelligence or another subject. I learned this by seeing the teacher integrate basically art with everything. She was able to integrate music, making the kids active so they're not just sitting around. So that was a great experience to watch her do that because it made me feel like when I'm creating lesson plans, I can integrate anything I want with it. And last, these 4-year-olds deserve more credit than we give them. They are so smart, so intelligent, and sometimes we don't see that because we just see them as children. They are very mature for their age, and we shouldn't be treating them like babies, even though we want to sometimes, because some of the conversations they have are conversations that grown-ups have. So it's amazing to see how their minds work, and it showed me that we should be able to hold them to a higher standard and not just, oh, they're kids, let them just color and do whatever they want for the day. So I was glad I was able to observe this classroom because it showed me a lot between how we can integrate content with others and how to hold these children at a high standard. Thank you for listening.